Can you spot your favorite stars after all these years? We'll show you how they look today and give you 5 seconds to guess their name. Then we'll reveal how they looked in one of their iconic roles from back in the day. Some will be easy, others might take you by surprise. Keep count of how many you recognize and share your score in the comments below. Ready? Let's get started. That's the Bond girl turned frontier doctor herself, Jane Seymour, whose Dr. Quinn, medicine woman, made her a television icon, and whose ageless beauty seems to defy the laws of time itself. She was actually born in England, but mastered an American accent so perfectly that fans were shocked to learn she was British, and she performed many of her own horseback riding stunts. She's 74 in 2025. You're looking at the Partridge Family princess Susan Dey, whose Laurie Partridge captured teenage hearts and whose later L.A. Law role proved she could handle serious drama with equal skill. She was so committed to her legal drama character that she studied actual courtroom procedures and law books to make her performances more authentic. She's 72 in 2025. That's the memory master Marilu Henner, whose rare hyperthymesia condition allows her to remember every single day of her life in perfect detail, and whose taxi role showcased her incredible comedic timing. She can tell you exactly what she wore, ate, and did on any specific date since she was a teenager, making her one of only a few dozen people worldwide with this ability. She's 73 in 2025. Here's the everyman charmer Tim Matheson, whose Animal House antics launched his career and whose voice work on Johnny Quest made him a childhood favorite for multiple generations. He's also a successful television director who helmed episodes of major series, proving his talents extend far beyond acting into behind-the-camera expertise. He's 77 in 2025. You're witnessing the ultimate cowboy Sam Elliott, whose distinctive mustache and deep voice made him the gold standard for Western masculinity, and whose romantic roles prove tough guys can also be tender. His voice is so iconic that he's narrated countless commercials and documentaries, and he actually owns a working ranch where he raises cattle and horses. He's 81 in 2025. That's Dynasty royalty herself, Joan Collins, whose Alexis Carrington was television's most glamorous villain and whose shoulder pads became power dressing inspiration for working women worldwide. She owned over 500 designer outfits from the show and still wears many of them to special events, proving that 80s glamour never truly goes out of style. She's 92 in 2025. Behold the Beverly Hills rebel Shannen Doherty, whose Brenda Walsh brought teenage attitude to 90210, and whose off-screen reputation for being difficult was overshadowed by her brave battle with breast cancer that inspired millions. She was actually born and raised in Memphis, not California, and had to learn the West Coast lifestyle for her most famous role. She passed away in 2024 at the age of 54. You're seeing the original Charlie's Angel herself, Jaclyn Smith, whose Kelly Garrett was the heart of the detective trio and whose business empire made her richer than her acting career ever did. She's the only original angel to appear in every episode of the series and personally tested every product in her successful clothing and home goods lines. She's 79 in 2025. That's international cinema royalty Sophia Loren, whose Italian beauty conquered Hollywood and whose Academy Award made her the first actor to win an Oscar for a foreign language performance. She still lives primarily in Switzerland and maintains the same daily routine of olive oil, pasta, and laughter that she credits for her legendary longevity and beauty. She's 91 in 2025. Here's the one day at a time daughter Mackenzie Phillips, whose Julie Cooper role showcased her natural acting ability and whose personal struggles with addiction led to honest conversations about recovery that helped countless fans. She's now a successful addiction counselor who uses her experiences to help others, proving that second chances can create meaningful new careers. She's 65 in 2025. You're looking at America's sweetheart Meg Ryan, whose romantic comedy roles defined the genre for an entire generation and whose fake orgasm scene became one of cinema's most quoted moments. She was actually studying journalism before acting and brings that investigative approach to understanding her characters, making even light comedic roles feel authentic and grounded. She's 63 in 2025. That's the comedy legend Carol Burnett, whose variety show sketches influenced every comedian who followed and whose ear-tugging gesture was a secret message to her grandmother watching at home. She can still perform her most famous characters decades later and claims that staying connected to her inner child keeps her creative spirit alive. She's 92 in 2025. Witness the Dallas Queen Victoria principal, whose Pamela Barnes Ewing brought sophistication to South Fork Ranch, and whose skincare empire proved that beauty expertise could translate into business success. She left acting at the height of her fame to focus on her cosmetics company and personally formulated many of the products that bear her name. She's 75 in 2025. You're seeing comedy perfection itself, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, whose Elaine Beans made Neuroses hilarious, and whose political satire in Veep earned her more Emmy Awards than any other performer in television history. She comes from one of America's wealthiest families but chose acting over inherited wealth, proving that passion matters more than privilege. She's 64 in 2025. That's the sweetest angel of all, Cheryl Ladd, whose Chris Monroe replaced Farrah Fawcett and won over fans with her girl-next-door charm and impressive action sequences. She performed most of her own stunts and learned martial arts specifically for the role, making her fight scenes more believable than typical television action. She's 74 in 2025. Here's the Southern Belle Delta Burke, whose Suzanne Sugarbaker brought brilliant comedy to Designing Women, and whose real-life marriage to Gerald McRaney created one of Hollywood's most enduring partnerships. She struggled publicly with weight fluctuations and used those experiences to create more authentic, vulnerable performances that resonated with audiences nationwide. She's 69 in 2025. You're witnessing the $6 million man himself, Lee Majors, whose Steve Austin made slow-motion running and bionic sound effects part of pop culture forever. He performed many of his own stunts despite insurance company protests and actually learned advanced stunt techniques from professional coordinators to make the action sequences more realistic. He's 86 in 2025. That's the Karate Kid villain William Zabka, whose Johnny Lawrence became the most sympathetic bad guy in cinema history and whose Cobra Kai return proved that redemption stories never get old. He was actually a nice guy in real life and had to learn how to be convincingly mean, working with acting coaches to develop his intimidating screen presence. He's 59 in 2025. You're looking at the Dallas patriarch Patrick Duffy, whose Bobby Ewing death and resurrection created television's most famous shower scene, and whose underwater basket weaving hobby proves that celebrities can have surprisingly normal interests. He's also a licensed pilot who flies his own plane to film locations, making him one of the few actors who literally flies himself to work. He's 76 in 2025. That's the ultimate tough guy, Mr. T, whose B.A. Baracus character made gold chains and mohawks fashionable, and whose "I pity the fool" catchphrase became part of American vocabulary. He was actually discovered while working as a bouncer, and his distinctive style was entirely his own creation, not a costume designer's invention. He's 73 in 2025. Here's the romantic leading man John Cusack, whose boombox scene in Say Anything became every teenager's declaration of love, and whose independent film choices proved that artistic entirety could coexist with commercial success. He actually learned to kickbox for several action roles and maintains that training regimen, proving that romantic leads can also be credible action heroes. He's 59 in 2025. How many did you recognize? Tell us your score in the comments. If this brought back memories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with a fellow fan of classic TV and film. These stars didn't just entertain us, they became part of our cultural DNA, creating characters and moments that continue influencing entertainment today. From frontier doctors to space smugglers, they prove that great performances transcend time itself. We'll see you in the next one.